what a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man. Who else we got? Arwin and Brian. Brian's Logic. Is that it in Discord? Yeah. Oh, and also a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Wow, you're late. You got preoccupied.
Light water. Can you pop yourself on mute, please? Yeah, we had a chap in the pre-show, so this will come out for those of you watching live tomorrow. So it's Wednesday today. This will come out on the second channel Thursday, or if you're a channel member, once this conversation has been concluded live and the after show's over, I'll release this show immediately to channel members of Nathan Oakley 1980. However, the pre-show had a chap on that basically wanted to go through Rumpus's demolition because I've just released a video about Al-Biruni not measuring Earth curve, and we went round very briefly the circle that Rumpus took us in, only for this fundy to double speak us between having a geometric horizon, which we cannot see, and seeing a geometric horizon which we cannot measure. So there's a fundamental problem at the moment with the globe Earth logic, which is in the form of a black swan argument, and the black swan argument has demonstrated that we do not have a geometric horizon. Their rebuttal is, well, no, we don't have a geometric horizon. We do. We just don't see it. So their rebuttal to the black swan argument is we don't see the geometric horizon. So we're now asking, well, if you don't see it, how are you going to measure it? Precisely as Al-Biruni has claimed to do. And the answer is you can't. So that's a very real problem for them. They don't like it. It seems like Rumpus is getting shunned as a result of it because he didn't win at the end of his time here. It was just demonstrated admirably with his definitions of what horizons were and were not, i.e. we have a separate, apparent, visible horizon and non-visible, non-apparent geometric horizon. Well, given that that's the case, and according to them we've got two horizons, one of which is not geometric apparent, which is visible, and that's what Al-Biruni measured, he didn't measure geometry. He didn't acquire R precisely as he's claimed to do, and that's a big problem if you've got an R value you need to assume everything about your worldview. Hey, Chocolate Sane. Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
But they only need to think that he measured R, though.
He didn't. He measured an apparent horizon, which is not geometric, so we ain't getting an R value from it. Big problem if your rhetoric has an R value, which it does. It's just been debunked by the Black Swan, and you're falling further into the pit of we don't see that which we require to block boats and buildings by hand-waving and saying we don't see the geometric horizon. All right, well, that's a bad thing if you need it blocking boats and buildings. Anyway, hello, I keep calling you Chocolate Sane. Hello, Sleeping Warrior.
Howdy. I was enjoying your premiere before, Nathan, the Scaredy Cat one.
Yeah, that's the rebuttal.
To represent science. He didn't do very well at it, did he?
Rumpus did extremely poorly and is being shunned by his own side as a result of that. Not that he could ever have gained a win out of this situation. We only have one horizon. The horizon in your sphere Earth geometric model isn't the one we see. That's neither visible, it's only in existence in the maths, which is very much our point.
Well, what I'm going to do, Nathan, I'm going to give a plug. We had a meeting with Rumpus ourselves recently. Me, Bev, Emma UK, and a few others. I'll just spam it in text a minute while I describe this. Basically, what happened was Kosho made an error. Now, it wasn't a big error. It was just a little error. But it was one of those errors that you just concede and just say, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I got that the wrong way around. And you move on from it. It's not a big deal. But because ballers won't ever concede ever that they've made a mistake, Kosho wouldn't concede. So the more he was reluctant to concede and move on, the more it became an issue. And it was to do with triangles, oddly, because I'm known for triangles. And I looked at this issue that he presented, and it doesn't matter what the topic was. It was just questioned one part of his labeling of his diagram because it looked like it might be wrong. So we all had a little look into it to see whether it was wrong or not, and it was wrong. So Rumpus was called in to correct Kosho. Rumpus came in, and rather than correct Kosho with what is an extremely trivial error, but not a big error, but a trivial error, Rumpus found a little bit of weasel room to argue that Kosho was right if you change one of the facts. And we said, well, don't change one of the facts. Deal with what's presented and tell us, is he right or not? And we knew he wasn't right. And Rumpus wouldn't deal with the expressed triangle that was drawn. He inferred the other triangle, the reflected triangle or the inverted triangle that was not drawn, and said if you go with that angle, then it would be okay, which nobody was challenging. But because he wouldn't concede that that Kosho was incorrect, we spent about an hour arguing over why would he not concede, because he shouldn't be protecting someone when they make a minor mistake, because otherwise we don't get any accountability, we don't get any honesty from the opposition. And if they won't be honest with us when they make a really trivial error, because they won't concede ever, then how can you expect any of them to give you any honesty on something serious? And this is only to do with labeling a triangle. But because he wouldn't be honest and say, do you know what, Kosho's got that wrong, it should be the other way around, he allowed Kosho to think that he might be right if you infer the reflected or the inverted triangle, which wasn't the point that we were talking about. And basically, he did his own friend a disservice by basically not correcting him so that Kosho could learn something. Now, it's not that big of a deal. But if we're arguing over something, how can you have an honest discussion with somebody that won't tell the truth, won't concede a point that needed to be conceded? We spent an hour plus on it.
Just got a quick question.
And he wouldn't concede. So I'm just going to spam it again in text just so that people can stick it in the bookmarks and have a look afterwards. It's a really good example of how dishonest Rumpus is. Now, I happen to like Rumpus. I think he's one of the better ballers because I find him entertaining, wrongfully, but nonetheless he is entertaining. But he wouldn't concede. How can there be any conversation, guys, if the ballers won't ever concede any points ever? It's ridiculous.
Just got a quick question. You used a word, accountability. What does that mean?
It means if I make a mistake and I do a video on the wrong folk court because it was half cut on a Friday night and I didn't realise I hadn't spotted that it was the wrong bloke, I've got to delete the video. I've got to apologise and admit that I made a mistake. It's a minor mistake, right? And everyone knows it was a mistake. I just didn't spot it was the wrong bloke. But it's not that big of a deal. Okay, I deserve the bullets when they get fired my way, and yeah, I deserve it. But the same goes the other way around too. If you make an error, admit it so that we can move on. Don't defend it and defend it and defend it. Just say, I got it wrong. This is what it should have been. That way we all know that you're being honest. But it doesn't happen.
In a courtroom setting, how does this get defined in a courtroom setting? Accountability. What does that mean in legal terms?
Depends on how much of an issue it is. If it was played on and played on and played on, the judge would see it arguably in its worst light that you were trying to mislead the courts and trying to mislead the courts. And if you're doing that, it's the worst thing that you can do. But, I mean, we're only trying to label a triangle, and it's not that big of a deal. But if you can't be honest with it when there's an error, how can we have any conversation, guys?
All right, I'm sorry to labour this. You say the problem would be that you, meaning the person that's in this example, not being perceived as credible, would be potentially deceiving the court. So
yeah, you can't mislead the court.
And what happens if you do?
Well, worst case scenario is you can be reported to the Solicitors Regulation Authority. You can be struck off if it's serious enough. It's seen as misleading. It's perjury, isn't it? It's misleading the court. It's one of the biggest things you can't do.
And what happens if you do?
At the judge's discretion to implement it, isn't it? It all depends on how serious they take it at the time, and it could be that your case is thrown out. It could be that you get punished in some other way. You might be removed by the judge for representation. It's serious. It's the biggest crime that you can make, isn't it?
Okay, and this applies to a specific individual.
Yeah, counsel. If you're representing somebody, in this case it was Rumpus representing Kosho, and he was basically in there to settle Kosho's error, which again wasn't big. It was only minor. But if he's in there to settle it, he should be settling it. He shouldn't be finding wiggle room to argue that Kosho might not be. Well, he might be right. He's right if you. It was a little bit sloppy. You know, it was just wrong. We brought you in to settle it, and you didn't settle it, and you're supposed to be representing the truth.
Okay, so, but at this point, if it was in a courtroom setting, my point is that an individual would be potentially punished, correct?
Correct.
And in this example, when we now move back away from the courtroom setting to this setting, are these people in any way accountable for anything ever?
Absolutely not. They're all anonymous. You don't know who Rumpus is.
That was going to be my next question.
What his name is.
That was going to be my next question. So they're just nobodies with absolutely no accountability. So lying and defending each other's lies, kind of inconsequential then, because there is actually no feasible punishment for these people.
Unless you just get removed from the scene for a while, and then you have to come back 3 weeks later when you've kept a low profile because everyone remembers. Where's Brenda, by the way?
Hold on, let's not deviate off this. My point is that in other scenarios, should you do this, there's consequences. But for the people who defend the globe lie, there are no consequences when it reaches this stage. So they're essentially in a position where they are allowed or maybe even obligated, who knows, let's not try and divine their motivation, but in a position where they can lie through their back teeth with no consequences, basically.
Yeah, I mean, look at Fight the Flat Earth, for example. He had George Musa on his show to try and work out whether gravity was a force or not. Now, to this day, he still holds the position that George Musa supports him and told him he was correct. And we all know what he said. Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. We must think of Newtonian gravity as a force. Doesn't really mean it is a force, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level. Now, he thinks to this day that George Musa supported him, yet everybody that's got half a brain can see that he was being polite and correcting Craig and saying, like, for instance, when he said, yeah, I like the word manifests. That doesn't mean, yeah, that was the correct answer. That means, yeah, it wasn't quite right. But Craig can't see that because he hasn't got the experience of professional lingo to understand that the guy's disagreeing with him. He's just being polite.
Sorry,
if it was Nathan, he would have said you're a moron.
I agree with all of that. I'm not disagreeing, but my point is subtly different. So in the case of George Musa and Fight the Flat Earth, Craig, what's his surname?
Craig McNeil's a wanker.
What's his surname?
McNeil.
So we've got George Musa and Craig McNeil who have made these assertions, and should they be wrong, it affects their credibility as individuals.
Yeah.
Well, that is a consequence, isn't it?
Yes.
How is that the case with someone like Rumpus, Kosho, Zanuck?
It's not, is it? That's why the trolls exist on their side, to find out any snippet of information they can about you. Because if you suggest that the Earth might be a sphere, Operation Brian Mullen will take place and they'll take your job off you. But this is why these all hide behind anonymity, because they're scared to come out and be honest with each other, because they don't want to lose their jobs. They need to hide. It's like the troll under the bridge for Billy Goat's Gruff. That's what these people are.
I have a poignant
Operation Brian Mullen. I like that.
That was good. I like that.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Chocolate. Hold on. Let's just say a couple of hellos to the new guests. So we've got Chocolate saying hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you. And also Brian. Go ahead.
Hey, I have a meme in Master B that supposedly, it's only off the internet now, but it supposedly is a quote from Albert Einstein that is very poignant to what you're talking about. If you want to have a look at it, Nathan, and share it.
Sorry, is it the?
Have you just put it in?
Master B.
Hello, guys. Hold on, Brian. Is it the Einstein thing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stick it up. It's up now.
Okay.
Whoever is careless with truth in small matters cannot be trusted in important affairs. But look at Einstein himself. I mean,
yeah.
The whole story for the whole narrative is wrong, isn't it? But they all pretend and act as though it's real. It just defies belief that anybody can realistically think that we can be breathing in a vacuum. It's madness.
Okay, well, we've all got a few issues off our chest and everything else. I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping, even though we're 15 minutes into the show.
Mm-hmm.
Any evidence of a physical sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from Al-Biruni's astrolabe.
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
No.
Yo,
Apparent horizon, geometric horizon, you don't see. Yeah.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
absolutely
no.
not.
Nope.
Planes prove that it can't be moving.
I'm leaving little pauses for you guys in Discord. Hold on. Fresh it. Wait 1 second, guys, in G+. Was anybody wanted to add anything to that?
Did we just speak about Al-Biruni?
Yes.
All right, we're speaking about Al-Biruni. All right, so I like the way that current heliocentric proponents, the people that sort of push the model, they essentially stick to obviously what was found by Al-Biruni, and then they also like to play this game, don't they? What's this game they play where? Well, it's an apparent horizon. It's a geometric horizon. They like to shift the goalposts between the two. They like to invoke refraction as an axe that comes down upon our heads in order that we speak past one another. But then when I try and get them to, let's say, talk about the type of refraction or the effect of refraction, and thus the actual attributes that are, displayed by that effect of refraction, that's where we start to get a little bit murky, and that's where we start to actually pin these guys down. So, I think that's something that we need to really do. That was just my little thought at that time. Something I've been thinking about recently in other debates that I've been having. But yeah, great to be in the live stream, and
And
was invited over by Chocolate.
your name's Crack Villain.
Yeah, it's Crack Villain. I don't know
Yeah,
who
it's
I'm
my boy
speaking
Crack
to because
Villain.
Nate.
Good to hear you over here, brother.
Oh, is that Chocolate?
Yeah, bro.
That's
Yes,
so
sir.
strange because I thought I could hear more than one voice coming out of this Nathan Oakley character here, and but yeah,
Sounds like fight and talk.
yeah,
Yeah. Everybody on this panel will come through Nathan's on over there on Discord.
that's pretty sweet. That's pretty cool. I'm actually friends with you, Oakley, Mr. Oakley, on Facebook. But yeah, I'm yet to reveal my name on Discord. But maybe I'll drop you a DM after this, let you know sort of who I am.
Cool, good stuff.
Sounds
Yeah,
very cryptic.
Thanks for letting me be a part of the group. I appreciate it.
Yep, just to get us back on track. Nice chatting with you, though. Thanks for being here. We only have one horizon. The horizon in the globe Earth model is geometric, and their refraction, which is the point that you were making, is based on R. 7/6R. That's their refraction. It's a mathematical based geometric value. That's all it is. It's not actually based on any atmospheric conditions. It's worth talking about the bait and switch here. So if you're in debate with a fundy, Globehead, and they're skilled, they'll talk all about what atmospheric refraction is in terms of what's happening before your eyes. Now that is actual refraction. But the refraction that they're going to utilise when they talk about the globe isn't that. It's based on a geometric R value that's been derived from a point you cannot see to bend light around that point that you can't see at the rate of the point that the light has got in R based on 7/6R. So it's a complete nonsense cluster screw begging the question on steroids.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Any evidence
I've experienced that.
Wait, what do you mean? It's not cool to use the R that you don't have to salvage the R that you don't have?
No.
All right, damn. All right, moving on.
I mean, there might be new evidence. Is there any evidence of R? Anybody?
Crickets.
You don't have an R, then you're not going to have the next one then. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Crickets.
They need R for that.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
In fact, they need R for everything. There is no example that will ever be put before you that doesn't beg the question of a sphere Earth as the presupposition. That will always be the case. If they're trying to prove that the Earth's a sphere, they will always, without exception, start with the presupposition that you're standing on a sphere to begin with. That's the only way they can prove it. It's the only way you can prove something that isn't true. Presuppose your outcome.
Indeed. I can actually post a diagram to which they apparently find the distance of close stars. You should have a little look at that come out of a science encyclopedia. We have obviously, well, we could say the left side is, we could call that west, for instance, the west side of the sun. We could say that the sphere on the right side is the east, for instance. They say they take a measurement, knowing obviously that they're 93 million miles away from the sun, and knowing that they are exactly, when they take the other measurement, right, on the exact opposite side of the sun, they then draw using, I think, if we look at this, it says about parallax, right? It talks about many different things, but essentially what they're trying to state is that they can, use, I think it's some form of cosmic radiation to bounce off of a nearby star from one position off on the left side of the sun, and then off on the right hand side of the sun, and then they use triangulation to find out the distance of a different sun. But guess what, guys? You don't have the R value of the globe that you're using to do this. So again, falls flat on its face.
Perfect. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific
What's
evidence
gravity?
of relative density equilibrium, though. There is scientific evidence of that. You can prove that in your own home every day, all day. Anybody can do it. You can do it as a family together. You can do it. You can prove to yourselves that relative density equilibrium is a real thing. But you can't do that with gravity. There's no physical demonstration that you can do in your own home. But you can drop something and assert gravity as the cause.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Man?
No.
No way.
Oh, there is actually one that I heard earlier that was brought up, which is called the axis of evil. The axis of evil is the alignment of 7 differing solar systems, right? That over 30 years they took observations of this. Since they've tried to create excuses to say that some of their calculations were wrong when they were actually based off of observations over 30 years. And a Glober actually turned around and said, well, that was 2005, that was old. I said, well, old in your books, my friend, is that we don't have the technology to get to the moon today, but we did back then. So what is old in that timeline or that, chronological order? That makes absolutely no fucking sense when it comes from the body of NASA. Both come from the body of NASA. And he said, well, axis of evil is fringe. Of course it's fringe because it completely goes against the idea of heliocentrism and pretty much debunks it, because it is an impossibility that we would have 7 or 6, I may be wrong, it might be 6, sorry if I am wrong, solar systems that are aligned over many different observations using, I think, again, was a form of of radiation waves. That was how they were computing the data that they got, which obviously, again, I've got issues with that. But it's just quite funny that this globe head didn't understand that the top proponents of his own model had damning evidence against what they purport to be true, yet he hand-waved it as fringe. And at the beginning of the conversation, when Wizard Slayer actually asked him, have you heard of the axis of evil? He said no, right? And then he proceeded to hand-wave it off as some piece of information that is absolutely non-contradictory, is non-connected, and is fringe. And he hadn't even done a Google search on it. And then when he had done a Google search on it, within the first, I would say, 32 seconds, he was an expert on the axis of evil.
That's
brilliant,
right?
Don't you love that though? When they become an expert on the thing you just told them about that they didn't know 30 seconds prior. All of a sudden you told them about it, they became an expert. Yeah. That's how that works.
Yeah, like I put out a video recently. And it's oddly, again, it was to do with Rumpus. If you have an express mention of something, so like, let's just say for argument's sake, the car park will only allow Volkswagen Golfs into the car park for free. All other people have got to pay, but because the guy that owns the car park owns a Volkswagen Golf, he lets Volkswagen Golfs go in for free, right? Nobody disputes that there are other makes and vehicles that are available, but if you happen to drive a Volkswagen Golf, you get onto the car park for free. But if you drive a Vauxhall Astra, you don't. Rumpus doesn't like that concept because when it gives express mention for straight lines in the definition for perpendicular, Rumpus thinks that it implies that the lines don't necessarily need to be either lines or straight. They can be points of reference, and if they are lines, they can be curved. But express mention of one thing excludes other things, even though the other things may well exist. And that name's got that descriptive term title has got a name. It's a Latin phrase, and it's in short, it's exclusio unius, and then something that I can't even remember off the top of my head. But I picked it up a long time ago, and it dawned on me that it applied. Well, nobody had heard that phrase before I mentioned it, and then suddenly everybody becomes a fucking Latin expert because exclusio unius. Suddenly everybody understands what it means, and I had everybody telling me what it means, and I spent years studying it back in the day, and it's something that was etched in the back of my mind and I'd forgotten about. But when Rumpus tried to include something that wasn't mentioned as though it was mentioned, I'm like, hang on a second, it doesn't mean that. But you're right. When you mention something new, the ball tards go away, they read it, they then tell us what is the correct interpretation based on their understanding, and they become an expert, but we're still dumb. It's amazing how that works. Nobody had heard the phrase until I mentioned it, and then all of a sudden everybody becomes an expert. It's ridiculous.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yeah, this is where essentially I was taking them. So P waves and S waves and refraction. There you go. There's your answer from Kosho and Zanuck. Done.
P waves and S waves. Squiggles of lines on bits of paper is not evidence for what is the molten iron core.
Yeah, I know. I was a little bit angry at that answer, and the fact that it included refraction, I was just like, wow. That really took me aback a little bit because I said, well,
Kosho said that, right?
He
said refraction. I was like, refraction?
I think that's
I was like,
a
the core
neutral
6,000 kilometers deep, and you proclaim to know the constitutes that thereof that it makes up. Iron and nickel, the asthenosphere, the mesosphere, all of these different layers, not only that, but you also are telling me whether they're liquid, soft, plastic, hard. You're telling me all these different variables when the deepest you ever dug was 12 kilometers deep or 7.8 miles for other people listening. But you assumed to know, and that didn't even come out as you proclaimed it, because the Earth's crust, remember, is either 3 miles deep underwater or is 70 kilometers deep. I'll go across, actually, 30 to 40 kilometers deep, depending on if you're on the landmass. The 3 miles deep is underwater. But that's to get to the Earth's crust, for instance. The Earth's crust being 18 miles thick, for instance. Remember, the Earth's crust was actually established and developed. Those 3 layers from the Earth's crust going downward, right? That was the 1700s, and then again from seismographs for the core was 1936 via a guy who was reading seismographs in New Zealand. So they were talking of technologies that essentially establish through seismographs apparent densities. But I'm sorry, all of these things were asserted in the 1700s and 1936. And in 1936, the same guy was establishing and saying that, it was iron and nickel in the core. And, it's this temperature and these are the mediums and this is the viscosities of these mediums. And the deep koala super bore drill hole, like I said, the depth that it is 12 kilometers deep or 7.8 miles. They did not expect to find what they found. They found liquid that was like honey that they could no longer drill into. And I believe it had a temperature, I think, of like 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And that does not add up at all with what we have been shown in these core models, for instance, right? So it's all complete conjecture, it's belief, it's religious, in fact. It's divorce.
Cool, thank you. Very informative.
Well said.
The bit that was unfamiliar to me, or I had only a very vague notion of, was this bit that you described when they got to the bottom. So what I read into it is that they'd drill, and then physically what they were drilling into would move away from them. Now, you've described it as being like honey, which is... I've never heard it described like that. Maybe you know more... It sounds like you know a lot more about this than I do in terms of what they actually hit when they got down to 7.9 miles or whatever it was, 12 kilometres. You're on mute, by the way.
They hit the membrane.
Vanished. You there, crack villain? Moving on. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
No.
Net container 0.
Still can't demonstrate it on Earth.
Yeah, it's just dumb.
Well, we can always hold out hope for this violation of natural law to be demonstrated to us. You never know.
Yeah, let me just add to the seismic point that he was on about with PNS waves before he dropped. Seismology made 4 predictions in the Kola super deep borehole drill, and all 4 were wrong. You can look them up yourself and research them yourself, but one of them was that they predicted that there would be an increase in density in rock the further down they dug. And when they got down to a certain point, there was a decrease in pressure, a decrease in density of rock. They weren't expecting that. Another one was that they were expecting there to be a layer of transformic or metamorphic rock from basalt into something else, or from something else into basalt, whatever. The layer of transitional rock that they expected to be there turned out not to be there. There was some other explanation. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but the key point is that the 4 predictions of seismology about this drill, this drill hole, all turned out to be wrong. Yet that same seismology is what they use to predict the shape of the Earth based on P waves and S waves. It's all 4 predictions were wrong. It's just rubbish.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Just missed out on the housekeeping, so that concludes it.
So then that's a contradiction then.
They don't know what's down there, and they can never demonstrate that they can acquire the knowledge of what's down there. So what they've claimed, P waves, S waves, demonstrated the contrary of what they assumed when they were digging the Kola Deep Sea. How do you say it? Kola Deep Borehole, right? Yes, Nathan. Yeah. So when they were digging that,
super deep, the Kola super deep borehole. Kola super deep borehole.
When they were digging the super deep borehole, they made predictions which did not come true. So this isn't a reliable source of information. It certainly doesn't prove we've got a molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Oh, what a coincidence! We just happen to have the graphic of Theia smashing into Earth at a glancing blow. Now, the result of this claimed event is that this planet on the right deposited its molten iron core into the fledgling Earth. Now, that means we've now got an oversized molten iron core, because obviously based on their timeline, it should have been cold by now, and it isn't. So what's the explanation? Well, Theia smashed into us. It was on a trajectory that was inevitably going to smash into Earth, and when it did, luckily, it only smashed into it at a glancing blow. And the debris from Theia went all out around Earth, but luckily, gravity coalesced it into the moon. Wouldn't you know? So that's why we've got, bits of bark being brought back from the fake travel through a second law of thermodynamics sky vacuum to gather up bits of wood that are already on Earth from the moon, according to them. And the reason it's the same is because basically the moon is Earth, because the moon and Earth are kind of a mixture of Theia and the fledgling Earth before they collided into each other, and the debris made the moon. And we got an extra big molten iron core. And it's true because they made it up themselves. Wouldn't you know?
I'm sure they got more science.
Those rebellious gas particles had to overcome all kinds of stuff, try to stay on there too, with that thing smashing in there too. I tell you, those rebellious gas particles, I tell you, they're pretty something else.
Yeah, that's the follow-up story, isn't it? It's like the sequel. So that's like the origin story. And then, further down that timeline, you've got the story of the rebellious gas particles. Obviously, Theia smashed everything off into all oblivion and, the debris coalesced. But obviously, they've then got to form gas with that planet that's got a big, kind of hole in it that's whatever. I don't know. That kind of makes no sense. But that's their story anyway. We'll go with it. Well, that's got to develop gas pressure, the stuff that we're breathing, right? Now, currently, you've got a very hot rock with all this debris flying around it that's apparently going to coalesce into the moon. But what about the gas? That's got to form at some point, right? Well, how's it going to form? Well, you need the story of the rebellious gas particles. The gas is produced at ground level after this all calms down. It flies up, and then it reaches this arbitrary point in the sky and says, you know what, I quite like it here. I'm going to stay. And they burn their bras in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, and they just stay where they are. Some of them just go back down again. And
but you're missing a very important point.
What's that?
This happens over millions and millions of years.
Yeah, I mean, the story continues. At some point in the current story of the rebellious gas particles, some of them say to the others that are just sort of disco partying at the Carmen line, and one of them will just randomly go back down again of its own volition, and they go, hey, what are you doing? And they go, I've decided that gravity's a force, so I'm going to just head back down again.
I love how my little joke has become now a whole narrative.
Yeah,
that happens.
Whole subcommunity, a
Do you want to put my
subculture.
screen on? Let me just do a really quick presentation on them predictions of the seismology in the Kola Superdeep borehole.
I always thought it looked like a gigantic gobstopper.
Okay, you're
Yeah,
on,
that's a
Anthony.
good one.
You're on.
All right, so Kola Superdeep boreholes, 4 major predictions that seismology got wrong with the deepest hole known to man, right? Is it about 12 kilometers or 7 or 8 miles deep? And you can find these online. Just if you just type in these sentences, you'll find them online very easily. And this particular citation describes. Oh, I think I've just lost it now because I've just done that. Let me find it. It says one of the most surprising findings was the absence of the transition from granite to basalt, which scientists had long expected to exist between 3 and 6 kilometers below the surface. Known to geologists as the Conrad discontinuity, this transition in rock type was reasoned to exist due to the results of seismic reflection surveys, the same surveys that they claim is the shape of the Earth, right? It turns out that they didn't have it. They didn't have this rock, so what they thought was there turns out not to be there. So, oops, that was a mistake from seismology. And then this one as well, ZME Science. If you just type in these sentences here, you'll find them. 2019 article. There are 6 unexpected discoveries, right? A lot of water down there, forget that. What's this one here? To cut miles into a whole new drill. Is this the one? No, it's not that one. Gases. The Earth has gas, unexpectedly, helium, hydrogen, nitrogen. So how does helium and hydrogen exist down there, the lightest of all the elements? How does that exist down there? Why is it not being bursting up to the atmosphere and evaporating? It's under pressure and all that. That's an interesting one. But look at this. There's the no basalt reference again. Where is it? The seismic anomaly suggested that basalt was caused by metamorphosized granite instead. That's the same one. There's another one in here somewhere, but I can't find it now. I thought I had it straight, but I've obviously mixed it up. There's another 2 or 3 of them are in this article here. Let's see if I can find it really quickly. No, I can't find it off the top of my head. I thought I had it, but my point is that there are 4 key predictions that they got wrong. And if you just do a research, now that you know that do a research for what the seismology predictions were, and you'll find that they got it wrong. Yeah, they tell us that P waves and S waves tell us the shape of the Earth, and there's no other way possible it could possibly be. That's just not true. Anyway, that's me done.
I mean, just because they were wrong, not even actually making it to like 8 miles, doesn't mean they're wrong about 4,000 miles down. Come on. Give them a shot. Give them a shot. They need a shot, man.
Yeah, I can't actually remember what the other predictions were now, but they are out there if you want to look into them. I'm happy that P waves and S waves don't prove anything, because they're subject to interpretation, and although you can put them into a computer and generate images based on it, doesn't mean that it's true, accurate, reliable. Because when they dug down and found out that a load of stuff was wrong, then it's a bit of an issue.
Right, quick shout out to Flat Earth Travolta, who says, "Where'd Sean Hawkins go? Can't chat spam is lonely with only rumpus. J-Trig budget cuts? Question mark." Thank you very much for the super chat, Flat Earth Travolta.
Yeah, Rumpus is roaming around.
Hey, Anthony, if they can't even see the geometric horizon that's on their model in reality, how are they going to, and that's on the surface of their ball, how are they going to know what's inside it?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? P waves and S waves don't go anywhere near far enough to demonstrate proof. They're an interpretation of squiggles that you can put into a computer algorithm and get a picture, but it doesn't mean it's true. Boiling hydrogen mud, that was another one. They had boiling hydrogen mud, which they weren't expecting. Why? God knows. But the reality was that was something they didn't predict. It turns out that it was true. Oh, water at depths previously unheard of. They thought water only existed below up to a certain depth, but they found water much, much, much deeper than they expected. Why? Don't know, but it didn't come up in seismograph predictions. That's another one. There is a fourth one now, but it'll come to me over time.
I was going to say, you'll probably remember it quicker than you'll find it in the article.
I've not looked. I've just shut it. I'm just letting people know that the info's out there. It'd be nice if Rumpus joined and apologised for misleading people, though. He's in chat. Why don't you come in and say, Rumpus, that you misled everybody and say you were sorry. You didn't mean to mislead everybody. You were just wrong.
Anthony, did they say how far down that they are saying that hydrogen and helium is?
Say that again, mate. You're a bit quiet.
Sorry, did they say how far down hydrogen and helium is sitting? Like you said that they are saying that there's hydrogen and helium down there. Is that below the 8 mile distance?
Well, 8 miles the depth, the maximum depth, isn't it? It said, I'll see what I can find out about it. The hydrogen.
It's interesting that they make those claims, or they make all kinds of claims. But it'd be interesting that they make those kind of claims, especially if it's below that distance.
Do we really know what they actually do, though?
Not really, no.
They'll make any claims that they think supports their model. The problem with their model is that reality doesn't support their model.
Yes, I agree, Hint.
That was the other one. They found microscopic bacteria down below a certain depth that they weren't expecting, because they didn't think that any life could exist down there in terms of, like there's no light, there's no oxygen, there's no this, that, and the other that's needed that they thought was previously required for life. Yet they found bacterial growths and bacteria that's living down there that they didn't expect to exist.
I'm going to do a quick shout out again to Unitox Femu. He says, Bruni watching with Nikon. What a F. Why is so flat? Thank you very much for the super chat, Unitox Femu.
Reality is in complete agreement with the spherical model, Lumpus says. Oh, you mean that the Alberuni that was measuring the apparent horizon that he thinks he was looking at the geometric one, Lumpus? Is that the one that you're on about?
It can't be the same geometric horizon that Rumpus just told us the other day existed in the math.
Does Rumpus think that fluid dynamics is reality? Does water adhere to a ball? Is that reality, Rumpus? Or is that your model?
What about... Sorry, Kent. Sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, go on. Go on.
Go on, Brian.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in the middle yet. No, just saying, what about what we just talked about? Where they had every prediction wrong for just 8 miles down. How does his model comport to reality if they can't even get 8 miles down? They're correct. You know,
It doesn't.
That they're the people who made these claims about what was down there. Were all globers who were working off of a globe belief, and they can't even get that right. So, what's he talking about? Sorry, Nathan.
No, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, they haven't. They can't. They can't even get that right. What hope have they got? Well, none.
Rumpus.
Some newbies.
How does a superheated metal maintain its magnetic field under his model? How does that happen?
I think we're still waiting for Paul Voigt to come back with that.
Well, there's a relevance.
Just a little bit longer.
The housekeeping question is: any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Are you around, Anthony? Can you cover this?
Sorry, what was the question?
Just want you to talk about the Curie point.
Okay, so when iron and nickel, the two main ingredients, the two main elements that are said to be in the molten iron core and the inner core and the outer core, these are meant to be the main elements. When they get heated beyond a pretty low point, I can't remember the exact figures, but I think one of them's 500 and I think the other one's 600 and something. Don't quote me on it. It loses its magnetism. Now, if the Earth's supposed to be rotating, creating the dynamo effect, which is supposed to be charging, like creating its own electric field or its electric current or whatever word you want to use to describe what it's supposed to be generating, it doesn't create a magnetic field that it can hold or even have by itself because it's gone beyond the Curie point. So the only way that it can possibly have its own magnetic charge is if it's inducted from an external source, which is not their model. Now, it might be like you could fantasize over what that external cause might be, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't self-generate its own magnetic field just because it's moving, which is what they claim it does, because it doesn't have the ability to have it because it's beyond the Curie point. Now, some people say, yeah, but it cools down as it gets towards the surface. Well, that may well be true, but where's the field that is generated when it's not got it in the first place? It can only be absorbed from an external source, like a plasma ball when you put your hand on it and it shows like lightning. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's the way to describe how it might be. But that's not their model. So whether we speculate what we think might be doing whatever doesn't matter. It's not their model. So their model requires an external induced source. And I don't know, Rumpus, I'm sure you can come in and say, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that it can't. We'll just redefine words. But that's what's required. Sorry.
The only actual perpetual motion machines that we're told actually exist is like the globe Earth and the solar system and all this. You know, they're all perpetual motion, aren't they? Yeah, but in reality, none of those things work. But then they'll tell us it's because we have an atmosphere. You know, how do we get that?
Well, but also the other side of the coin. Remember the egg experiment that I've showed on here a couple of times? I can't at the moment, where the hard-boiled egg and the raw egg, and how it does not only the raw or the hard-boiled egg can maintain even some level of constant spinning, but if it's non-cooked, it doesn't last very long. So if the Earth has molten would imply liquid. I know, Lily. I know, Lily. I know. Hang on a second, real quick. I guess you guys, since you screaming, you guys understand where I'm going. So someone else can explain it.
At least you're not being rumpus by Rumpus and it's a child.
Okay, she decided to be quiet. So if the egg will not perpetually spin when it's raw, the hard-boiled egg would more likely be that. And if molten means liquid, which means there's this liquid rock underneath our feet, how are we maintaining rotation under those conditions? Still don't understand that.
Make the conclusion. Don't phrase it as a question, Paul. Phrase it as a conclusive statement.
Okay, you cannot have a liquid molten core and maintain rotation. You cannot.
Thank you. Cool. That's the most.
And another egg experiment proves that. So, by the way, just to give a plug for Sleeping Warrior, another egg experiment.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
No, just another egg experiment. I was just giving Anthony.
Oh, I see. I see. In addition to Sleeping Warrior displacing an egg by adding salt to water, this is a different egg experiment, just for the humorous effect of that. Yeah.
You got it.
Coolio.
I guess that salt was a force, huh?
F equals
Nathan
S.
said he can't join because the Discord server's full.
Oh well. My heart bleeds. We don't need him. I know you're egging him on to come here.
We don't need him.
Chocolate.
He can't be honest anyway.
Salt is a force. That's why in the...
Sorry, 10th man, hold on. It's a gap now, he might join. So don't poison the well, in case he does join.
No, this is for chocolate. Salt is a force because in criminal law, you go to jail for assaulting.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, man.
Roy.
Would that be assault and battery?
Yeah, that's the charges that people put against you.
Yep.
Right, can you clear the airwaves? I just want to hear Sleeping Warrior and Rumpus. Nobody else, please.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you. Thanks for joining.
How are we today?
Fairly not too bad, not too bad.
So about that geometric horizon, do you concede that it's apparent? It's not geometric after all? Al-Biruni couldn't have been measuring...
Hold on, we've covered this. I thought you were going to talk to him about the core. That's what he was talking about in chat. Don't just immediately change the subject on him, Anthony.
Sorry, I didn't realise there was a plan. So we want to talk about molten iron core?
Only because that's what you were talking about that he was discussing in the chat. So ideally...
Okay, so notice how Nathan doesn't want to talk about horizons. It's very obvious there.
If you say so, Rumpus. If you say so.
Scaredy cat.
No. Okay, I don't mind summarising that point. Al-Biruni's supposed to be measuring geometry, and according to you, he's measuring an apparent horizon that isn't geometric. So he's not measuring geometry. I'm not scared of it. That was the point we ended on last time when you said scaredy cat through me about 100 times. Scared. Now you're talking through me. It seems you're talking through me. It seems that Rumpus is a scaredy cat. Because he definitely doesn't want to listen to and then respond to the fact that he said Al-Biruni's measuring an apparent horizon, which he made very clear isn't geometric. Therefore, Al-Biruni's definitely not going to derive geometry from that. He's going to talk through me, scaredy cat, scared to listen to my rebuttal. Same as last time, scaredy cat. You can't respond to this.
Not a word. I can't speak at all. Oh, good, I'm going to get a chance.
No, I'm going to repeat my statement and then you're going to respond to it, or you can say scaredy cat. Those are your two options. Either respond to me with a rebuttal, or you talk through me. I don't mind which. So, you've expressly detailed that the geometric horizon is not the apparent horizon, and the only thing that you can derive geometry from would be the geometric horizon. You told us Al-Biruni's measuring the apparent horizon, so he cannot derive geometry from it.
He can, because they're very close together. If you go,
they're very close, so they're not the same. So it's not giving him geometry.
It's close enough.
Close enough? It's just good enough, Globe Fundies. You heard it here first. He's not measuring geometry. Apparently he's getting R from this measurement, but it's good enough.
For him, yeah.
For him, it's good enough. Yeah, just good enough to base an R value that you then use to bend the horizon into a different position. Good enough to base the refraction value of R on.
It's good enough for the 11th century.
Sorry, good enough for the R value that you're going to bend the horizon around with.
We don't use Al-Biruni's value now, Nathan. We've got...
Sorry, you use an R value, and he was deriving it.
Yeah, but we don't use the way...
Sorry, you use an R value, and that's what he was supposed to be measuring. Am I scared? I don't seem very scared.
You are.
Oh, really? I seem terrified while I point out that he couldn't have derived geometry because he couldn't see a geometric horizon. You've told us.
Everything I say.
Then how did he know he was close enough?
That he got
if you
for R,
couldn't even see the geometric horizon.
Twat comes and interrupts. I could never get in at all.
Who cares? You've told us he measured the apparent horizon. And the only thing that's going to give him geometry is a geometric horizon, which he wasn't measuring according to you. They're very much not the same thing. You're being pummeled. Yeah, we give a crap about your bleatings. No, we don't.
More words.
We don't care about your bleatings. How many words you get here is not of concern to me. What is of concern to me is that you've pointed out that Al-Biruni's measuring an apparent horizon, so he's not got a geometric value from that then.
No, not even one word.
Yeah, that's all you can do is bleat about how many words you get. You can't respond, can you, scaredy cat? I'm pointing out that apparent horizon's not geometric, and you're scared.
3 words.
Yeah, you're scared. Scaredy cat hasn't got a geometric horizon.
Word now. I'm down to 0 words. Oh.
No, we're hearing you saying how many words you get each time. We're hearing you not respond to me pointing out that he's not deriving geometry from an apparent horizon.
I'm trying to respond, but I can't.
Well, we're hearing you telling us that you're trying to respond, but you're not responding to the fact he hasn't got a geometric value from an apparent horizon because you can't get that.
2 words.
Yeah, that's another repetition of how many words you're getting, rather than you pummeling the fact that he can't derive geometry from an apparent location by your standards and your definition that apparent is not geometric.
One word, 2 words.
Yeah, that's another response about how many words he's got, rather than addressing the argument. Scared of the argument, only addresses how many words he gets.
2 words.
Yeah, that's all he's ever going to address. A bit like calling me scared. Yeah, I'll tell you this, little man. I'm not scared to point out that he hasn't got a geometric value when he's measuring an apparent location. He's not going to get within 5% of it because we can't see it. I'm not scared. I'm destroying a globe, Faith, you hold.
1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, I've got 4
Sorry,
words.
let's just establish with Rumpus on mute if he's not listening to me again, same as yesterday. Anybody in Discord? Did he listen to any of my rebuttal? Was he too scared? Did he talk through every bit of it so he couldn't hear it, so he didn't have to respond to it?
Do you know the answer to that?
No, I want you to tell me, Neil.
All he did was say 3 words, 4 words, 2 words.
You talked through the entire
So
thing.
like the last time we got to this concluding point, he called me scaredy cat. And on this occasion, I've said I'm not scared to discuss the fact that you cannot derive geometry from a horizon he defines as not geometric. That would be apparent. Now, that's an impossibility that he cannot square. And he's so terrified to actually even listen to me point it out that he'll say 1 word, 2 word, 1 word, testing 1, 2, 3, 1 word, 2 word, 3 words, 1 word, 2 word, continuously, so he doesn't have to listen to it. It's the only tactic when you've lost. So I'll summarise. Not with Rumpus saying 1 word, 2 word, 3 words, because I've heard everything he's got to say, as has the audience. When he got given a chance to rebut what I claimed, which is you cannot, this is a fact, something Rumpus will never get around. Fact. You can't derive geometry, as is claimed Al-Biruni did, from something he can't see. Now, according to Rumpus and every fundy on this circuit, we cannot see a geometric horizon. So you're not going to get within 5% of it. You're not going to derive an R from it, precisely what Al-Biruni is claimed to do. Now, Rumpus cannot address this. He's lost. So scaredy cat, I only get 3 words is the only response we'll ever get from him. You don't have a geometric horizon. What you've got, though, is an imaginary tangent to a point you can't see. Because here we are with AB Science's explanation for this little problem, with a location of a geometric horizon, but his line of sight being bent like a donkey dick to an apparent horizon. 2 separate things. Now, according to Rumpus, Al-Biruni was measuring the second one, the apparent one, the one that isn't geometric. So he's never going to derive an R value from it, and there's no way round it. Oh, well, other than calling me a scaredy cat and moaning about how many words you've got in while I point this out over and over and over again. You haven't got a geometric horizon, fundies. You, fundies with a globe belief. You need a geometric horizon. Your entire religion is based on it. Anyone want to add anything before I round out the live show and ask everyone watching in the premiering stream to stay tuned?
I would just love for Rumpus to tell us how Al-Biruni calculated within 5% of a geometric horizon, not being that he never saw the geometric horizon. We could find that out. That'd be great. That's it.
I think he was trying to tell us that they don't really need his attempt to prove R anymore. They just presuppose it, but he never got to saying it.
Can I ask a question? This is a very important question. From the geometric horizon that's supposed to be there and the apparent horizon in the black swan, what is the percentage difference in that? Does anyone know? Someone calculate that?
Oh, it's enormous. I don't know about percentage, but what I do know is that if you calculate the assumption of a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon when calculating the black swan image, you end up with a radius value that would give you a circumference of an Earth that is the equivalent of the orbital path of the moon in the heliocentric bullshit world of a sphere Earth in a vacuum. So you'd have an absolutely enormous sphere if you calculated that to be a physical sphere edge. Now, as a result of that, Paul, their rebuttal to that, Paul, is to say we do not see the geometric horizon. And on screen now we have Al-Biruni's claimed measurement to C, which is the geometric horizon which he derived R from, based on his dip angle measurement, utilising an imaginary horizon drawn 90 degrees to his zenith at A. So based on the dip between an imaginary horizon and C, the geometric horizon to give him an R value, he is absolutely without question assuming that he is measuring a physical, geometric, sphere edge horizon. The very same horizon that we are being told by the people here who debate that we live on a globe, we cannot see. Ergo, Al-Biruni could not measure a geometric horizon to give him an R value because it could not be seen. We cannot further to that come within 5% of a geometric horizon because we cannot see it. And with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream or Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!